Look at the traditional corporate landscape today and you will see a dying empire. For decades, organizations have operated on a broken premise that human beings are merely line items to be monitored, optimized, and managed through rigid KPIs and compliance checklists. This legacy framework does not inspire greatness. It systematically suffocates it. The urgency could not be more critical. We are witnessing the absolute death of modern management because a spreadsheet cannot command loyalty. A time clock cannot inspire innovation, and a checklist will never produce elite mastery. If you continue to lead through the lens of transaction and control, you are actively driving your brightest minds into psychological checked-out survival mode. True master-level leadership is not about managing work, it is about advancing a cause. It requires a radical psychological shift from demanding compliance to earning deep, unshakable trust. The leaders who dominate the future will be those who stop managing people like machines and instead weaponize a shared purpose, transforming a disconnected workforce into a high-velocity movement dedicated to absolute excellence. A superior man understands that true allegiance cannot be bought with a paycheck or enforced through a corporate handbook. Modern management fails because it demands transactional compliance before ever giving people a reason to care. When you ask men to sacrifice their time and energy for mere metrics, you receive the bare minimum of their effort. A master leader commands the room not by flexing authority, but by laying down a sacred, unshakable purpose that captures the imagination. He defines the profound reason behind the struggle, transforming a standard daily routine into a mission worthy of a man's highest devotion. Inspiring others to endure the heavy friction of elite execution requires a leader to anchor his team to a cause greater than themselves. If you only manage the tasks, you are simply policing behavior while the potential of your organization rots. A superior man rejects this transactional mediocrity, knowing that real loyalty is forged when individuals realize their daily labor contributes directly to building an enduring legacy. A superior man recognizes that bureaucratic control is a fragile illusion born out of fear and an inability to truly inspire. Modern management obsesses over monitoring and policing behavior because it lacks the courage to rely on human capability. When you build an empire of micromanagement, you communicate to your people that they are inherently untrustworthy. This toxic dynamic rewires their psychology, forcing them to focus entirely on self-preservation and following legacy rules rather than high-performance execution. A master leader actively tears down these structures, shifting his role from an architect of control to a guardian who protects his team. Shifting from control to trust fundamentally alters the velocity and loyalty of an entire organization. When men know their leader covers their blind spots, they stop playing safe and start taking the bold risks required to achieve elite mastery. They stop looking at the rule book and start focusing on the ultimate purpose of the craft. A superior man understands that a culture built entirely on compliance will only ever produce safe, predictable mediocrity. Modern management locks people into a rigid matrix of checklists, falsely believing that optimization equals excellence. When you force men to focus strictly on avoiding mistakes, you systematically crush their innate desire to innovate and master their craft. A master leader shatters this compliance matrix because he knows that revolutionary mastery requires the freedom to push boundaries. He does not ask his people to blindly follow outdated rules. He shifts their focus toward true professional growth. Breaking free from the matrix of compliance allows a leader to awaken the raw, untapped potential within his team. When you remove the artificial boundaries of rigid policing, you create an environment where men are driven by internal commitment rather than external pressure. They stop working out of fear and begin working out of a deep reverence for the core purpose of their work. A superior man realizes that artificial boundaries between fields are merely structural, illusions designed to protect the comfort of mediocre managers. Modern management thrives on creating isolated silos, separating creative minds from technical operators and forcing men to stay inside narrow lanes. When you box people into rigid, disconnected departments, you blind them to the ultimate vision of the tribe. A master leader ruthlessly demolishes these artificial barriers to blend opposing disciplines into a unified force. By intentionally cross-pollinating separate skill sets, he engineers a culture of paradigm-shifting hybrid excellence, where breakthrough innovation becomes an everyday reality. Blending separate disciplines removes the structural friction that prevents an entire organization from achieving its highest potential. When a superior man unifies diverse perspectives under one shared visionary cause, he unlocks a collective intelligence that standard corporate frameworks simply cannot comprehend. Men stop defending their personal turf and begin collaborating to advance the overarching purpose of the craft. A superior man understands that deep human devotion is never given to a textbook formula or a rigid corporate playbook. Modern management has systematically trained us to worship the methodology, falsely promising that blind adherence to a standard process will guarantee elite success. But our internal biology does not care about standardized procedures. It inherently craves meaning and impact. When a leader demands that men pledge their allegiance to a static template, he suffocates their intrinsic drive and transforms a living craft into a mechanical chore. A master leader bypasses these sterile instructions, redirecting his team's biological loyalty back to the ultimate purpose of what they are building. Shifting an entire organization's focus from the rule book to the core vision allows a leader to unlock an unshakable commitment that no transactional KPI can ever enforce. When a superior man elevates the overarching mission above standard corporate guidelines, he grants his people the psychological safety and autonomy required to achieve true professional mastery. Driven men stop asking what the manual permits and start executing what the ultimate purpose of the craft demands. This profound alignment transforms their grueling daily labor into an inspired, outcome-driven pursuit of a shared legacy. A superior man understands that an intentional culture is not built by forcing men to worship a rigid process, but by inspiring them to fall in love with the ultimate outcome. Modern management mistakenly believes that if you micromanage the daily grind with endless checklists, excellence will naturally follow. This process-forced architecture transforms passionate builders into passive clock watchers who are merely doing time. A master leader rejects this mechanical stagnation, creating an environment where the destination is crystal clear, but the execution requires true autonomy and grit. He sets a massive, audacious vision and trusts his tribe to navigate the friction of reality. When men are driven by a shared desire to conquer a worthy challenge, the heavy labor ceases to feel like a corporate mandate and begins to feel like a collective crusade. Shifting the culture from process-forced compliance to an outcome-driven obsession fundamentally rewires how a team experiences the daily struggle. When a superior man links every ounce of sweat directly to a tangible victory, the nature of the grind completely changes. Men no longer show up to satisfy an arbitrary rule book. They show up because they are deeply invested in the legacy they are actively carving out. This intentional alignment satisfies our intrinsic biological need to achieve, making even the most grueling tasks deeply fulfilling because every effort possesses undeniable meaning. By prioritizing the overarching mission over the strict guidelines of a manual, a master colony leader builds an unshakable brotherhood of high-velocity operators who are entirely consumed by the mission.